Welcome, and thank you for joining me for another episode of Sexual Assault Survivor Stories, the SAS podcast, coming to you from the Podvlog studio in St. George, Utah, and produced by Markel Consulting, LLC. I'm your host, Dave Markel. Hello, everyone. It's just me in the studio today because I want to spend some time with you on an educational topic. Today, I want to talk about something that I often bring up in my training presentations and that I've alluded to in a few of my past episodes, and that is the issue concerning something that is commonly referred to as weapon focus. The term weapon focus refers to an experience in psychology and criminology in which a victim's attention is drawn to a weapon during a criminal event, often at the expense of other details. When a weapon is present, such as a gun or a knife, victims and witnesses tend to focus their attention on the weapon itself rather than other aspects of the situation, including maybe the perpetrator's physical appearance or other relevant details. The resultant effect is that the victim will remember specific details about the weapon. For instance, if it's a handgun, the victim may be able to describe the color of the weapon, such as metallic blue, stainless steel, or silver-plated, and maybe even the size of the barrel, and whether or not the weapon was a revolver or a semi-automatic pistol, but not be able to describe anything about the person holding the gun or the clothes the person had on. Imagine the aftermath of a violent assault. The victim or survivor struggles to recall details. The terrifying core of the event, the attacker's presence and the violation itself, is etched in the memory. That is what we refer to as central details, processed by the amygdala, the brain's fear center. But the specifics, the color of the attacker's jacket, the background noise, maybe even the time of day, remain frustratingly out of reach. These are what are called peripheral details, and they are extremely vulnerable to being lost in the hormonal surge triggered by the trauma. The distinction between central and peripheral details is crucial in understanding how the brain reacts to a traumatic event. Central details are loaded with super intense emotion, creating strong neural pathways. The brain prioritizes these for survival, beginning the immediate freeze, fight, or flight response. Peripheral details, however, take a back seat. Those facts and details about the experience are less emotionally charged because those details are not as life and death related, comparatively speaking, and so they're stored in more fragile connections. The trauma itself can further complicate memory retrieval because the overwhelming stress hormones released during an assault can disrupt the process of consolidating memories from short-term to long-term storage. This can lead to fragmented memories, where central details remain, but peripheral ones fade. We'll talk more about this memory process in future episodes. For now, it's important to understand that this fragmented memory can be incredibly frustrating for victims and survivors. The lack of peripheral details can fuel self-doubt and make recounting the assault difficult. It's critically important to remember, however, that these gaps don't negate the central truth of the trauma. The absence of details does not mean that the assault didn't happen. It simply reflects the brain's natural response to overwhelming stress. This narrowing of attention can occur due to various factors, including the perceived threat posed by the weapon, the shock of its presence, and the intense emotions evoked by the sexual assault or rape experience itself. As a result, victims and survivors may have difficulty accurately recalling details about the perpetrator or the events surrounding the experience, as I mentioned. Weapon focus has significant implications for victims and survivors in subsequent reporting to authorities, such as law enforcement or Title IX investigators, even to victim advocates, medical personnel, or mental health providers. The experience highlights the importance of considering factors that may influence witness perception and memory, such as the presence of a weapon, when evaluating the reliability of the accounts by victims and survivors. At least, that's what the perception is among those who don't understand the neuroscience of trauma and what's going on in the brain. weapon focus is just one tremendously important aspect of what I'm referring to when I'm talking about what it means to be trauma-informed. See, weapon focus evokes effects that can occur in situations where there are no weapons present. In psychology and victimology, the term weapon focus has been extended to refer to instances where attention is disproportionately drawn to any object or stimulus that is perceived as threatening or unusual, even if a weapon isn't involved. The experience I'm referring to in the context of this show, obviously, is sexual assault and rape. And that is why it is so tremendously important to have at least a basic understanding of the neuroscience of trauma and memory if you work with or even know someone who is the victim or survivor of rape or sexual assault. And the reason I'm so passionate that we become trauma-informed is that sexual assault and rape are not merely crimes of the body. They are crimes that leave an indelible mark on the very fabric of our being, shattering our sense of safety, trust, and self-worth. When a person is violated in such a profound and intimate manner, the effects ripple outward, touching every aspect of their lives and having an impact that lasts forever. So, you may be wondering what causes the brain to shut down in the memory process in the context of trauma-induced fear. To understand that, we must understand some of the parts and functions of the brain. A little bit ago, I referred to the amygdala, and I called it the brain's fear center. Let's talk about the amygdala for just a few minutes. The amygdala is a small, almond-shaped structure located deep within the temporal lobes of the brain, one in each hemisphere. Its name, amygdala, is derived from the Greek word for almond due to its distinctive shape and size. Functionally, the amygdala is a crucial component of the brain's limbic system, which is involved in emotions, memory, and behavior. The amygdala plays a central role in the processing and regulation of emotions, particularly those related to survival instincts, such as fear and aggression. It's often referred to as the brain's fear center due to its key role in the body's response to threatening situations and stimuli. The amygdala receives input, first and foremost, from all of the various sensory systems, including sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and even body position. And it's responsible for evaluating the emotional significance of that incoming stimuli. When the amygdala detects a potential threat, it triggers a cascade of physiological responses, including the release of stress hormones, such as adrenaline and cortisol, which prepare the body to react to the threat. In addition to its role in fear and threat detection, the amygdala also plays a crucial role in emotional learning and memory. It is involved in forming associations between stimuli, all of those sensory inputs I just mentioned, and in forming emotional responses which can influence behavior and decision-making in the future. For example, if an individual encounters a dangerous situation, the amygdala may form a memory of the event and associate it with feelings of fear or anxiety, leading the individual to avoid similar situations in the future. Moreover, the amygdala is also implicated in social and emotional processing, including the recognition of facial expressions and the regulation of social behavior. Dysfunction of the amygdala can result from an overwhelming fear encounter and has been associated with a range of psychiatric disorders, including anxiety disorder, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder, highlighting its critical role in emotional regulation and mental health, which is why I earlier brought up how rape and sexual assault can leave an indelible mark on the very fabric of our being, shattering our sense of safety, trust, and self-worth. I'll say it once more. When a person is violated in such a profound and intimate manner, the effects ripple outward, touching every aspect of their lives. Let me sum up the importance and significance of the amygdala. It is a vital brain structure involved in the processing and regulation of emotions, particularly fear and threat detection. Its intricate network of connections with other brain regions allows it to influence a wide range of cognitive and behavioral functions, making it a central hub for emotional processing and behavior. Let's talk then about the intricate connections with other brain structures and the impact those connections have on cognitive, behavioral, and memory functions. During a sexual assault or rape, the amygdala's impact on cognitive function and memory can be profound and far-reaching. As I said, the amygdala plays a central role in the brain's response to threatening or traumatic stimuli, and its activation during such events can have significant effects on how the assault is perceived, processed, and remembered by the victim. First, there is a heightened emotional response. During a sexual assault or rape, the amygdala usually becomes highly activated, leading to the intense feelings of fear, anxiety, and panic. The chemical release is often referred to as the fear cascade. This heightened emotional response can interfere with the victim's ability to think clearly and make rational decisions during the assault. The vast amount of chemicals released during an intense fear response include the release of the stress hormones previously mentioned, adrenaline and cortisol, into the bloodstream. The hypothalamus, which is located near the amygdala, then activates the body's sympathetic nervous system, which triggers a series of psychophysiological changes throughout the body. These changes include a freeze response that involves increased heart rate and blood pressure, accelerated breathing, dilation of the pupils, and heightened muscle tension. This freeze response can, and often does, result in a bodily response called tonic immobility. Research shows tonic immobility occurs, to some degree, in about 40% of all sexual assaults and rapes. The term tonic immobility, also known as a freeze response, is a state of temporary paralysis or immobility that can occur in response to extreme fear or threat, or even just a perception of threat or an inability to escape. During tonic immobility, the individual may appear frozen or motionless, with reduced muscle tone and minimal responsiveness to external stimuli. This state is thought to be an adaptive response to situations where escape or fighting is not possible, such as during vehicle accidents, combat, a life-threatening illness diagnosis, and most commonly, sexual assault and rape. It is associated with dissociation or disconnection from a traumatic event, allowing a victim to psychophysiologically distance themselves from experience. We've all heard victims of rape or sexual assault say, "I just froze." This very well could be an example of tonic immobility. Tonic immobility can be a life-saving response in certain situations, but it can also contribute to feelings of helplessness, shame, and guilt in the aftermath of a traumatic event. Understanding the phenomenon of tonic immobility is important for recognizing and validating the experiences of trauma survivors and for providing appropriate support and intervention. Finally, in addition to these physiological changes, the fear cascade also affects cognitive function, including attention, perception, and memory. Attention becomes focused on the perceived threat, while other cognitive functions are predominantly shut down. Perception may become distorted, and memory consolidation may also be affected, leading to an enhanced recall of threatening or traumatic events. Which leads us back to the concept of weapon focus, where there is oftentimes no weapon. These intense emotional arousals, triggered by the amygdala's activation, usually impairs cognitive function, including attention, concentration, and problem-solving abilities, as mentioned. Victims may experience cognitive distortions or tunnel vision, focusing narrowly on the immediate threat while ignoring other details of the assault. This can make it difficult for them to accurately perceive or remember certain details of the event. This is another reason why it is so important for first responders, investigators, victim advocates, emergency health providers, and yes, even friends and loved ones, to have an immense amount of empathy and compassion when dealing with someone who is the victim or survivor of rape, sexual assault, or any type of interpersonal violence. It's all part of what it means to be trauma-informed. I hope this provides you with a deeper understanding of weapon focus and the lack of certain memories that can and often does occur with victims and survivors of rape and sexual assault. We'll talk more about memory formation and recall during trauma in future episodes. For now, this may help you understand why I'm so passionate that my listeners start by believing. It's a big part of learning what it means to be trauma-informed and a step that you can take to help bring justice to victims and survivors of rape and sexual assault. Thank you for tuning in. It is all such important information. If you haven't already, please subscribe and rate this podcast. It really does have an impact on how this show gains listeners and growth. Again, don't forget to start by believing, because we all know someone whose life has been affected by rape or sexual assault. We'll see you next week.